Perfect, Jacqueline.
Hello, and welcome to our fourth quarter of our amazing Discover Love Academy with the best experts. It has been such a journey. I am Jacqueline Nichols, and I am a professional matchmaker with Discover Love Matches, and that is why I was inspired to create Discover Love Academy. And what's been really exciting is when I put out the word that I was looking for experts all over the place, I was blessed with such amazing people. And to now be wrapping this up after a year of doing this, I now know why these wonderful people came to me, and I'm very excited to announce our incredible speaker. The topic we've got to cover is totally important and very, very necessary. So before we get into too much detail, Susan, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, say why you wanted to be a part of our Discover Love Academy, and we are going to talk about all the good, juicy stuff you've got for us today.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. This has been I can't even believe the year has gone by, to be quite honest. Well, that's enough said about time and how it flies.
So true. Everyone's been kind of like, what happened? How'd that happen? But it's been so exciting too.
Yeah, I'm Susan Ball. I am the founder of Empowered Her, and I work with women who have left toxic, abusive relationships to create a life that they love, a big, bold, blissful life that they really enjoy, and to understand that what happened to them is one chapter, and we have many more chapters to write after that. They don't have to stay stuck in that story.
You know, I think that's exactly, the story becomes the companion. It becomes so much about who they are and what they represent.
Their identity.
It's everything. And it's amazing how much they bring that story to every date, to every relationship. And then they keep going, I wonder why nobody wants to go out again. It's like, there's just something when you kind of are just like lugging in way too much luggage, and you're so identified by how the last person or the last 5 people picked you and decided who you were. And so this is such an important opportunity for us to really shake it up and help people to see who they really are now and not what needs to be defining them from the past.
Exactly. It's so important to let that story go. I lived with my story for a long time. It was me. Without that story, I had no idea who I was. It was scary to say, okay, I'm going to let that go. No, I'm not. It was like a security blanket.
That's a great way to say it.
It is, because you're lost. And usually if you've been in a bad relationship, your identity has been squashed anyway. You've been pretty battered down, your confidence. So it's a real security. But I know that once I did kind of step into that courage and say, oh, there's more to life than this, I've got to step in and do that, things started to open up. But the one thing that I want to say to everyone is that if you've been in a bad relationship, or you had a series of bad dates, or you keep meeting the guy who is unavailable, it means that you haven't healed inside.
That's really what it comes down to. And you're so right. And I think we keep thinking that, you know, if we meet the right person, it'll make it all better. It'll be that duct tape, that balance, that extra layer we need.
Duct tape. I like that.
It just isn't. It isn't. The duct tape does not cure all.
No, you have got to heal whatever it is inside of you that is wounded, and it is something in there. And people say to me, clients, people I speak with, they say they think of a child wound as something big. Abuse, somebody died when they were very young, those kinds of things. And it's not. It can be the smallest thing. I had a client recently, and her trauma, her child wound, was that when her brother was born, he was born severely disabled. So all of her parents' attention was taken away.
Exactly.
She felt a certain amount of abandonment. She didn't recognize it as a wound that she was trying to fill in this gap in her life and get love through attention. So we all have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you think about it, somebody, when the family needs to focus on somebody else in the dynamic, you feel guilty saying, well, I don't get any attention because your problem isn't big enough to get the attention. And that's where it's so misguided, where we get lost in this shuffle of worth and value and understanding and availability, when it's really important to acknowledge that there's no size, it sounds like. I mean, it's how is it affecting your adult life? How is it affecting your future relationships? And so this is really important, as your topic covers, on saying you're ready for a relationship when you actually don't need a relationship to be happy. I love that, because so many people look to be with somebody to complete them. It's like, you're already complete. You're super great. You just need someone to compliment you, and that you bring out better qualities in each other. So what an important thing to stop and say, because people are so often, they're so caught up in, if I only had my man, if I only had the woman in my life, everything would just be so much better. And then it's like, doesn't really work that way. I don't know why, but wouldn't it be nice?
I'm still not happy, and it's still not working, because you haven't taken the time to know who you are, heal whatever negative energy is around you from the past, fill in all the holes yourself, fill in all the gaps. I call it kind of like Swiss cheese. And if you don't fill in the holes yourself, whatever they may be, you're not ready for a relationship, because somebody else cannot fill those gaps and holes in you. I had tons of them. That's why I kept attracting negative, unavailable, nasty men. I had tons of them. So I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know my value. I felt that I had no value. I didn't feel worthy of true love, if you want to call it that. And I wasn't giving it to myself. So I was teaching other people how to treat me very poorly.
Exactly. And I love that you make that comment. I was teaching other people, and that's been always a statement I make, is that we teach people how to treat us. And so when people get so frustrated and they're so like, oh, why is this person thinking they can get away with it? Well, at some point you let them know it was okay. You let them know that their behavior was going to be approved to be that way. And so what an important thing for you to reiterate and remind people that you've taught them that was okay. So that's huge. How do we start to break that cycle of how we let people treat us?
I call it freeing your voice. Ladies, you've got to free your voice and say, that's not cool, dude. That's not acceptable. Whatever it may be, it could be big. Whatever your boundaries are, whatever your values are, you need to know those two things inside and out, so that when somebody steps on your boundary, somebody kind of pushes that boundary, you can push back and say, not cool. No, that's not what's going to happen here. And the big part of that is not only enforcing your boundaries, but being prepared for the consequences, because he may walk away because you're too strong for him. And that's okay. That's that. You're not ready for a relationship until you don't need one.
Right. And really, it is such an important aspect. I love that you're bringing this up, because of that whole boundary concept. That's a tough one, because we pre-decide a lot of this, and then we get into a dating situation and the person's kind of making us, compromise or adjust. And it's not that it's all abusive. It's just we don't know how to really say what we want. And so it seems like in a lot of those relationship dynamics, maybe they just need to be friends. Maybe they just need to be someone you hang out with, but maybe they're not a life partner because they're not ready for all of you. And that's what I always hear from a lot of your wording and languaging and our other talks, is just be all of you and love all of you. And then when the right person comes along, they're going to want all of you. But as you say, when you've been in an abusive relationship or a neglectful relationship, you have been squashed. So much of your voice has been squashed. Your wants, your needs, your wishes, your desires are squashed. So you have to relearn, what is that? Who is that? Where is that? What does that mean? That's a huge part.
Yeah, and stop. I really get annoyed when women come to me and say, he should have known better, or he should have known I wanted that. Please stop. If you want something, this is called talking. Or you write it down. You do something, but you articulate your wants, needs, wishes, and desires precisely the way you want them.
I like that. And I like you saying, please stop it, because I get so tired of people blaming others. I was just in a conversation earlier. Well, if this person hadn't done this, this is where my life would have gone. Well, you know what? You actually were part of the problem in that mix. It's not about blaming, but here's where we are today. Here's what our reality is right now. And it's a ripple effect, but we can live in that past for so long. And we just expect the other person to just do what you want them to do, but they don't know what to do. And even if you tell them what to do, that still doesn't mean they're going to do it. You need to decide, are you going to stick around? Are you going to leave? And how are you going to make adjustments? Like, that's the thing I love about your communication, is that it really does come down to us. Like, you're not about passing the baton. So many people are all about, well, if you just told him to do this, he should have done it. Well, actually, you don't always get to do that.
There's going to be a moment. And this is where, again, that whole filling in your own gaps and being your own person, because really a relationship is growing together and co-creating something together. It's not quote unquote for happiness. It's for a bigger picture. The happiness is already there. You've already made it happen for you. And I know when I met my current partner, I love to travel, and I had been squashed from traveling. No traveling, you can't do any of that. So I was determined that that was a big one. And the very first time I was planning a trip, which was within Canada, I said to him, you can either come with me or not come with me. And I was good with either one. That's the key.
That is the key. I like that.
He got to make the decision, and he came with me, and he grew to love traveling. So now we do it together, and we look forward to it together. But part of compromise in a relationship is that you accept the other person's decision, and you're prepared to do whatever it is you wanted to do on your own.
You know, and I love you bringing this part up too, because a lot of people say, well, you can come with me or not, but they're really feeling like they're going to be mad at me. They're going to be disappointed. I'm going to let them down. Where we really need a relationship where you can say, you know, I'm good, I'll pass. And the other person doesn't make you feel bad, doesn't try to mess with your emotions, doesn't try to bait and switch on you. You have to be able to tell someone it's okay if you don't come, and actually be good with either answer, and then not hold it. But that's a tough one, because we're kind of raised to be like, well, I let somebody down, or, oh, look, somebody else just let me down. Well, you let them off the hook. Like, you have to be willing to accept the answer. So this is a really important part of understanding the happiness that you're talking about, is really expressing and accepting the other parts too.
Yes. And I just wrote an article about compromise. And one of the things about compromise in a relationship is when you're truly compromising in a relationship, no one feels diminished. Nobody's wants, needs, desires, interests feels diminished in that relationship. You are open to explore what you want to do individually, and open to explore what you want to do together. So my partner might have traveled with me one time, and at the end of the trip said, you know what, Susan, that's not for me. Suitcases, airports, not for me. I would have been okay with that.
Yeah. And I think that's the truth.
He would have been okay with me going with other people.
Right. And I hear that a lot. Like, I have lots of clients and friends that have commented that, you know, they go on trips as a single person with their friend who's married because their spouse doesn't want to go. And so there's a lot of ways to be creative. It's also about communication and trusting. But as long as you're growing in your own existence, then your partnership can flourish even if you don't participate in every activity together. But people have so many lines that they give up stuff for the partner when the partner is suddenly not going to be as fulfilled or happy or as much fun to be with.
And that's the other thing. You don't want to be giving up stuff. You don't want to be sitting there 3 years, 5 years from now going, I really don't like him. I don't get to do what I want to do. He never wants to do anything with me. Well, you can see how that would all snowball into not the good place.
Exactly.
It's not a good place. That just brings up bad feelings from everybody. So you have to go into it being whole, knowing what you want, being prepared to accept a no from somebody else, and understanding that. And this is something, I don't know where this has come from in society, but when you're in an intimate relationship, you do not have to spend every single waking minute with this person.
Right. It's really true. You really don't have to, actually. It's kind of good to go away and come back together. It makes a difference.
And it's actually healthier, because then you have something to talk about, and you have your own interests, and you're away from each other, and you're not stifling one another, and you have your own life. And when I say this, it's a beautiful thing to watch in a healthy relationship, because your partner really does love you for what you're doing, and he takes enjoyment in your enjoyment of what you're doing, if that makes sense.
Well, a healthy relationship does take enjoyment in what you're enjoying. And it really comes to that communication. Like, I really want to go do this. It doesn't mean we have to do it together, but understanding that it's not a matter of me rejecting you by not having you participate. It means this is just something I want to do and it's important to me. And listening and understanding and giving that person the space that they need and want and desire is so important.
Yep. And we lack that. We have this wanting the other person to read our mind. Doesn't exist. He's never, I mean, come on. For the average guy, telling him more than once is usually necessary. Getting him to read your mind, ladies, is not going to work. He's not within his...
Well, it's not fair to put that burden on him because it makes it so you both are going to fail. And then you're both, it's almost like that perpetual feeling of, if I only give a little bit and he does this, then he's proven himself, when really it's a go away, come here behavior. And eventually somebody taps the mat and says, I'm out of here. This is too much work. Instead, you can be like, this is what I like to do. I'd love for you to come. If you don't want to come, that's fine too. I mean, those are certain things that really matter, but also knowing that we have free will, we have the ability to make choices. And as much as we want a partner that maybe wants to travel all the time, it might turn out later you discover one partner likes you, one partner doesn't, but that doesn't mean it needs to ruin your relationship. It means there's other avenues to make those fulfillments happen.
Yes, it's almost like in a healthy relationship, there are three things happening: your interest, his interest, and your group in interests.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to look at it. That seems very basic, but it actually, we forget because people, they mush so much. It's interesting. In all my years as a professional matchmaker, there are definitely those people that as soon as they date someone, they want to be in a long-term relationship right away. They want to be 24/7. I remember asking a guy who likes that lifestyle of a relationship, and I was like, so how much is that? You know, the person you're dating, he's like, we're together every day. I mean, occasionally, maybe once a month, she'll go off with a girlfriend for lunch, or, you know, she'll go do something. And to him, it wasn't about controlling. It was just, we just make everything and do everything together. And it was like, wow, but everything's all based on you two. There's no outside stimuli. There's no outside conversations. Nothing new is coming into the equation when it's always just the two of you. Whereas other couples are like, yeah, if we saw each other once or twice a week, that would be nice. It's good to have that intimate connection with somebody. But also, I want to have somebody, you know, I have my friends, my girlfriends, my guy friends. I want to go do my own, you know, individual quiet things together and by myself or together with a friend. So it is interesting to understand how people look at sharing time and energy together.
Yeah, and it's very stifling in a relationship to expect someone to be there with you 24/7 feeding all of your needs. That's very stifling, and it's not a growing, co-creating, loving, healthy relationship. It's not.
It isn't, and really that's the problem. I think I've heard from so many of my clients that first marriage ended because they expected everything of that partner. So it's not even just an abusive relationship. It's also an all-consuming, where they thought their partner had to know every time they're having a bad day, every time, you know, they needed emotional support, every time there was something to celebrate, it was always on the partner, where there's other cool people in this world that can enhance the combination.
Yeah, and the other problem that happens, and you know this as well as I do, Jacqueline, when you break up with this person and you have left all your other relationships behind, your friends, your family, whomever, whether the relationship was abusive or not, you are left standing on your own with no backup support, with no support network.
Right. And this is actually huge because I think it's so sad, and it's so much of, you know, oh, well, you know, she got the friends, he got the friends, or you go and go into somebody else's world so much that, you know, it's one thing. Yeah, you might have met long distance. He had the better setup, so you relocated for him, but you need to immediately go out and build your own friendships, build your own connections, even if it's new community for you, but he's established. What are some things that you should do in a relationship to still keep your autonomy, but yet really grow as a couple?
I think that one of the best things is to have your own interests outside of the relationship. And it could be one thing or two things, but a passion that you have. And I always say to people, invite your partner to join you in them. Never make it you can't come to this, this is mine. Mm-hmm. But invite them to come. But be okay if they don't want to. This is your thing. They might want to. I know I've had Martin come to odd things and he'll say, well, I'm never doing that again. You know, but you go ahead. but he wants to join in and see if he
Right.
likes it. The same goes for me. He'll invite me places and it'll be like, no,
Yeah.
I'll do
And
that
what's
again.
nice is then your partner actually knows what you're doing, because it's amazing how creative the mind can get. I've worked with lots of couples, and if it's not, as I say, you beat a different drum, but there was a couple, and she really loved to go to a drumming circle, and she just didn't invite him because she just thought that wasn't his thing. And he didn't necessarily want to go, but he wanted to know what the heck she was doing. So he would have gone if she would have ever invited him. But she created it as mine, and I don't want you to come, without letting him be part of that decision. And so he always just kind of was upset and frustrated because he kept wondering, what is she doing really during that drumming?
Yeah.
And
that opens up a whole new chain of
does.
thought.
It really does. And I think that that's the part that we're missing, how important that communication is. But at the same time, once we learn what they're doing, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. That's your thing. I don't need to do it. But now I have a visual in my mind and understanding it's not that they want to do everything with you. It's just sometimes people need to know what it is. It's not control. It's not manipulation. It's just we have creative minds, and our minds are going to wander in the wrong direction if we don't really have an idea of what the person is actually doing when they say they're going to something.
And the other thing I recommend to people, to my clients and to ladies in general, women in general, is take some time for yourself. And if you're a career woman, take yourself out to dinner one night every 2 weeks or something, away from your friends, away from just have that solo time to reflect, to love yourself, to be okay with yourself, to forgive yourself for things that you think you did during the week, to just be looking after you, taking care of you, having that glass of wine, eating that red meat, whatever it is that you want to do without judgment, just having that time. It is so important to do that. It's really regenerative to do that.
I think that is such a great reminder. I tell clients that all the time. And I know for people that have been single for a long time, they're like, I already have to do it. But it actually should be rejoiced. It's something that when you take the time, I mean, I'm always throwing my journal book in my purse and just go to get some happy hour, enjoy a glass of wine, enjoy a little something to eat, sit up at the bar in the corner and just write and flow, or whatever it is that I need to get off my mind or process. But I find that people, because they've done it because they had to, because they were single, that they don't realize it actually could be healthy. So I'm really glad you brought this up, that this is positive. Date yourself. Take time to stop and think what it is that you like. Because when a relationship does end, a lot of times I'm saying to clients, you need time out between the past relationship to the new one, because you don't even remember what your favorite ice cream is, because you just realized he didn't like nuts, so you stopped putting nuts on your ice cream, but you really like him. You like to have hot sauce. Whatever it is, you start to let go of those things because your partner is just had a louder voice and was more committed to what they liked. And we evolve, but this is where stopping and dating yourself occasionally is so important. So I'm really glad that you make it a positive instead of well, I have to because I'm by myself.
Yeah, take a book, sit in a park. It really doesn't, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be any of those things. Bring yourself flowers every once in a while and plop them in a vase and smile at your spouse and say, always thinking of me. Just make it humorous and make it fun and make it loving between the two of you. But don't rely on him to do those things, and take time for you. It's really important that you do that, because we lose ourselves so easily in a relationship if we don't take those away moments. I have away moments. I love my spouse dearly, but there are times when I just need to get in my car and go away.
Yeah. Take a little time out and take a little regroup. And that's where, that myth of, oh, I can only be happy if I'm with somebody, but, you're pretty cool by yourself and you're pretty awesome. And you have all those options and open possibilities that I appreciate you reminding people that, being single is great. And even being in a relationship and having single time to just do your one-on-one personal growth is also really fun and positive. And to take that drive, to go to the spa, to go, have a glass of wine, to go and enjoy the flowers, and just not always wait for your partner to be in the same place as you.
Or a friend. Because I find another thing that happens is women who want to be, empowered and super cool. Okay, I don't need my spouse. I don't need my intimate partner to do things with. Now they're relying on their friends to do things with them. Oh, so-and-so doesn't want to go to the museum with me. And they get upset about that instead of saying, well, you know what? I'm just going to go on my own because I really want to go and see that show or whatever's going on. And that's what I'm getting at. Fulfill your life on your own. Be prepared to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
The show at the museum comes up. Nobody wants to go with you. Hustle your little buns to the show and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll probably make friends while you're there. You'll start conversations and strike them up. And I think that is part of the curse of, if you've been in a long-term relationship and now you're single, you're just always used to having a partner. So to stop and go, you know what? I actually don't have to ask someone. There's plenty of times I have clients that are like, nah, I didn't ask anybody to go do it because I just kind of wanted to do it. Like, I didn't want to stop and have to think about it.
One of the things I say to my clients to kind of put this into motion, into their brain, into their conscious being, is instead of phoning up people and saying, hey, Sally, there's this thing at the museum. Would you like to go with me on Tuesday? Phone them up and say, hey, Sally, I'm going on Tuesday to this thing at the museum. Would you like to join me? Completely changes the action. It actually moves you forward to doing it by yourself. You've already decided consciously you're going. So Sally going with you is really a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that a lot because we have to first own our own choices. I think of how many times there are opportunities to do things, but it's always like, well, if I could find a friend, if I could find a partner, if I could get a date to go, where of course it is nice to share a lot of these things with somebody, but really own the choice that you have to go do what you want to do. Then you can invite people to join you, but you first have to make your own affirmative. Plus it also keeps you in the power spot. I noticed that sometimes when I had been kind of wishy-washy, like, oh, it'd be neat if I could do this, if not, suddenly when I invited a friend, the plans became all their plans. It was on their clock, their agenda, their day, their whatever. And it no longer was, I'm going to something if you want to join. It was, okay, well, what do you want to do? And we have to, work on this as our voice. This is a great reminder.
And that happens with the spouse too. And I'm sure you hear this as well. You phone up your spouse or your who you're dating and you're saying, great thing at the museum, you want to go on Tuesday night, and suddenly he's got to work late and it's getting later and later and you're waiting for him. And then there's disappointment, and then there's an argument, and then it's all crappy because it all fell apart. Instead of empowering herself to say, I'm going, would love for you to come, but if you can't, and leaving at 6 o'clock to go to the museum instead of waiting for him and say, well, listen, if you get off work, this is all, where I am, come and meet me.
Yeah.
And that's that power back.
Well, and I love it too, because it also teaches the other person that they don't get to ruin your night because you didn't give them that power. You still want to go. You're still going to see it through. Whereas so often too, the other person, maybe really can't get off work. And the whole time they're stressing, I really should go because she really wants me to go. Where instead it's kind of like, I'm going with or without you. So you decide. And a couple of those times that other person's going to wake up, and most often I find that they tend to kind of go, oh, well, she's serious. She doesn't cancel plans just because I'm being a flake.
Yeah. And it happens. And you know what? That's all about boundaries. And that's also about, projecting and standing in your power and your value, because ladies, you are valuable. What you want to do, what you think, what you want, what you need, that's all valuable. And the more you communicate that and the more that you show up in that value, the more people will value you.
Exactly. Your value, I always use a phrase, raise your deserve level. And people have always been confused when I say that. And I do talks and explanations and they're like, oh, that's right. Like we get programmed to thinking we don't deserve more. We shouldn't, whether it's that second scoop of ice cream or a more passionate relationship or to get off work early or to take that vacation. Well, I don't deserve it. I didn't do this. Like we're always kind of shunning our own selves. And it's like, no, raise your deserve level. If you're not being treated well, find someone who treats you better, be in a relationship that makes you happier and healthier, but also treat that as something you focus in from the beginning and ask for it. And as you say too, teach people how to treat you. But if you don't think you deserve it, you're not going to try to get it.
No. And you're going to put up with bad behavior, repeated bad behavior until
really bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is that the behavior that and it just creeps in, and the other person isn't even necessarily always trying to be disrespectful or discount you, but maybe they weren't hurt in a relationship, or maybe they ran the relationship before and nobody's kind of just put the caboose and kind of calmed it down. Nobody's really aligned things. So that's where that, they just usually were always taking charge. And I find a lot of men have said, oh, it's so nice when she finally, she spoke up and she said what she wanted to do, where women are so often used to, okay, well, I'll just wait till he does it. And he asks and he offers. And some relationship dynamics that works because of different schedules. But I find that so often as a matchmaker, it's that energy of expectation we had from the last one wasn't always abusive or neglectful. It just, that pendulum had kind of gotten a little off. And so it's a matter of finding how do we get that balance. It makes a huge difference.
Manage your expectations.
I like that. Manage your expectations. That's a big one. I was actually just talking to a client about that. I said, we don't get necessarily what we want. We get what we desire. And so often we forget because we put these things out there, but yet, we have that little list in our head, but really we get what our heart's wanting and our connection there and where our focal point is. And so every time you're dating someone, to stop and go, where is our mind going?
Do you know what's fascinating about all of this? And if you stop and think about it, you would agree with this. Think how relaxed your relationship would be if everyone just spoke up about what they wanted right from the beginning, what was unacceptable right from the beginning. Everybody knows where they stand. There's no games going on, and you can chat with each other, which is the biggest thing. You can talk about things. That to me is one of the biggest red flags in a relationship. If you can't talk about something that maybe he did inadvertently that hurt you or bothered you or upset you, if you can't talk about that, communicate that, that's a big red flag.
It's huge. And it's red flag for both of you. I feel we put too much burden on the partner to know when we're annoyed or frustrated, or they said something wrong. And it's interesting because I have clients come in all the time after even just a first date. Well, he didn't do this. And I'm like, but did he know you needed that? Like, maybe his intention really wasn't to upset you. He might have been distracted, or he might have done this. I mean, I've been on dates and the guy will stop like halfway through the date. I cannot believe you haven't been on your phone. I'm like, well, that's how I am. But the reason he's saying is because obviously he's been scarred by everybody else on their phone nonstop. So, it is an interesting thing how we don't know what the other person's trigger is unless they tell us. And if they don't say it, then it's easy to get set up for failure. And you're like, what just happened? And that is why I so agree with you on enjoying just being happy, because it doesn't mean you're lonely. It just means you're alone doing what you're doing. And that's not a bad thing.
No, and you know what? You will attract more people to you because you're putting out that energy of self-confidence and I'm a woman of value and I'm worthy of this and I deserve, putting up your deserve factor, which is so important. And if you're at the museum or you're out for dinner, you're in the vibe that you want to be in. Those are the people that are sharing your interests. So
I like that reminder. Yes.
Yes, and you're not going to the museum to meet him. You're going because this is something you like to do. So don't confuse those two things.
No, but it's about making friendships. It's about light conversations. I mean, there's so many people that I meet that I'll never talk to again. But at that place, we had a commonality and it added to the event. It added to the activity. And then we went our separate ways. It had nothing sexual, romantic, or anything, male, female, nothing. It had to do with the fact that we both liked that piece of art, or we both loved that sporting event, or we both liked that restaurant. It's just, sometimes we just want to talk to another human, but it doesn't mean it has to go anywhere. It just means you're adding to it. And then what fun it is to come back to your partner and be like, oh my gosh, I just met this person, blah, 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 blah. And what fun it was.
Yeah. And it's great for you too, as well, to grow, because you learn somebody else's perspective. You're meeting people, you're open to other things. And I'll tell you a funny story. And I just want to say this. I was talking to a client about setting boundaries. I said, do you have any boundaries? And she said, oh yes, he has to be over a certain height, and I really prefer dark-haired men to blondes. Not a boundary.
No. That's interesting. Like, boundary, I shall not let a man that does not fit these things get near me at all. It's like, no, 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 no. Huge difference. That's called your little wish list, honey.
Yeah. And it also, when you think that's a boundary, or you think that's really important, that stops a lot of women from talking to other people because they don't fit this physical characteristic.
Right. That is actually incredibly true. And when a client starts with me, they fill out a client discovery form or a profile and answer questions of what they're looking for, what do they have to offer, and blah, blah, blah. And I noticed so many people, they're so set on things. Like, I just had a lady one time recently reply or tell me how one of the guys replied to her, oh, he likes a woman with long hair and she has short hair. Like, hair can change, but she is petite and he likes a taller woman also. But it's like, okay, say what can't change. You can comment that you like somebody who's taller because she can't get taller, but she can grow her hair. Like, and it is so interesting how many people get so fixated on the outside, which we do have what we're attracted to. Absolutely. I have no
Absolutely.
doubt. We know what turns our head, so that's a good thing. But we also have to remember that just because they got the good DNA doesn't mean that they're going to be a great person. And sometimes when we let that list go away a little bit, we can just enjoy somebody's company and we might just be pleasantly surprised. And that happens quite often in the clientele I work with.
Yes, and I have found it with women that I chat with as well. Letting go of that list that you have, being a little bit flexible with it. You never know who you're going to meet. And that's the other part of getting out and meeting people in social environments, in environments. I always say to my clients, go to things that interest you. Things that you want to talk to somebody about, whether it's art or wine or whatever it is, something that interests you, because that gives you a common denominator to strike up a conversation.
Right.
You're all there enjoying this
thing. I think that's super important. And you know that even if you don't talk to anybody, you're going to enjoy it because it's something you wanted to go to. But also it's so important because you need to surround yourself with like-minded people, regardless of where it takes you on a romantic level. But so many times when I go to something that's what I like or I'm curious about, I learn something new because I'm more open than if I'm just going to my usual stuff, or I go to something that I'm really not interested in, but I'm really pushing myself. I mean, there's only so much extreme you need to go do. I'm not going to go bungee jumping just hoping I'm going to meet some person, because there's no way I'd bungee jump even in the best relationship of my life. That is not my thing. So thinking, okay, what that you want to get and do a little more of.
Yes, and get out there and do it. Don't wait for somebody to come along and do these things with you. Be happy on your own. Fill up all those holes. Do the things you want to do. There are many, many things that you can do. I mean, long time ago, it was very awkward for a woman to go into a restaurant on her own. And that doesn't exist anymore. Women can come and go and do as they please. So ladies, open the doors, go in the restaurants. You want to go to a 5-star restaurant? You want to go and dine at one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants? Take yourself.
Yeah.
Treat yourself.
And really, if you sit up at the bar, it's not about drinking, but the bartenders, they're so personable and it's conversational. And there's probably another person that's new in town or a traveler or someone just to strike a conversation up, and they're hoping for the same thing. They're just hoping for a dialogue. And that's where I'm always telling people, just get yourself where you're approachable. You're in a space. Sit where there's a stool open next to you. Sit where you can start a conversation with the bartender and the servers. Because if you go and you sit and you're blocked away and you're, in a booth and no one can talk to you, you're going to get a different experience. Maybe you want to work on your journaling. You can do other things. But if you're looking to meet people, go to a space that you can enjoy and say, hey, I've been really wanting to go to this restaurant. This is so exciting.
Yeah, and just strike up a conversation and just be authentic about it. Be really in that playful, curious moment. You're doing something you've always wanted to do. That is a phenomenal way to start a conversation.
Right. And what fun if you did meet your person when you were there. You're like, oh my gosh, I did because I went and did this. And you both were on the same page of wanting the restaurant, let alone for maybe different reasons. But then you're also meeting people that are open to trying new things, open to exploring, open to just having a conversation. And again, it's just expands your horizon. So when you do have the partner, you are happier because you know you are really good at doing stuff on your own because you're going to meet other people. I know when I go off and I have somebody come with me to things, I don't meet the same people I do when I go by myself. Like, that's just a reality. Sometimes I kind of think, oh, I kind of want to do it by myself because I'll probably meet more people. It's being in that mindset. So I love this. I think it's so important to really just pull in what makes you happy, what you enjoy, and really having a voice in your relationship. But as you say, wouldn't it be great if we could just do this communication from the beginning and we don't take it offensive when the new person we're dating says, okay, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm looking for. And this is how I feel. Are we good? Are we good? Yeah. And how do you feel? What are you looking for? What do you want? Let's find some, because obviously there'll always be some compromise, but in that process, it's more about you enjoy your partner so much more when they're so freaking happy about everything else going on.
Yeah, and be careful because it's very easy to fall into the trap of living the should life.
Yeah.
I should do this.
Yes.
This makes them happy. I should do this. It makes my parents happy. I should do this for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy to fall into that trap. But if you're out there exploring your world and you're playful and you're curious and you're fulfilling all of your own needs, wants, and desires all on your own, falling into the should life is almost impossible because you already know who you are, what you want, and how you're going to get it. So it creates a different dynamic when people say to you, you should do this. You can say, well, that's a great idea, but no, I'm not going to do that.
Exactly. I love that because you already have your boundaries, you have your lines, you have actual boundaries, not just a wish list. So it's such a good story. And I think that's the thing. We get so caught up in the physical because we're watching movies, we're reading books, we see other couples. We just think if we had the person that fit us physically, we'd have all the other answers. And that isn't the case, obviously. So these are really important, tips and thinking, as you say, our life is rich and full regardless, and having somebody in our life, we can bring so much more to the courtship and that growing relationship when we actually feel great about ourselves. And you're going to attract a much more confident relationship dynamic that's going to be more rewarding.
Yeah, and it's really important in the very beginnings of a lusty relationship to break away, ladies, to do those things you like to do with your girlfriend.
Yes, there's some things you can only do with a girlfriend that just the guys can't do the same. That's just what it is. And it's frustrating when you have friends that, oh, yeah, they got in a new relationship and suddenly they don't really care. They don't follow up. They're not following through. And it's like you lose that intimate part of who you were before this whole courtship started because you lost the people that grounded you, that knew you when you didn't have your makeup on, knew you when you weren't perfectly put together, knew you when you could just have a bad day and they still loved you anyways. And too often we forget how important just the everyday friendships are to
we let them go.
Your relationship.
Sometimes we let them go way too easily.
We do.
We meet absolutely. A guy and we just ignore all of our friends. And I've actually had women say to me, well, they should understand. There's that should word. They should understand I'm just in a new relationship. No, they don't.
Right.
They're wondering where you are.
Yeah. And they're feeling left and abandoned and not valued. So you've got to be careful where you shift your value. Well, we're almost out of time. So
I know.
I'm loving this. Like you and I could just go. But what would you like to share to wrap it up in a bow? This has been a great year with you. And I'm just thinking of all these things that we'll have to do another class someday on because I love the reminder of deserve and should and really speaking communication and saying what you want, but letting your partner be okay if they don't join. It's really okay. And that's huge.
It is huge. And I think just to wrap this up, I just want to say, fulfill your own life. There's nothing wrong with being alone. And the only reason that you feel lonely is because you're not fulfilling your wants, needs, and desires on your own. Whatever they may be, fill it up. Fill up your cup. Make it runneth over, as they say, until when you look around, suddenly there's somebody there, and that's somebody to join into your life. So
Right.
there's even more. Do not look for somebody to fill up that cup. Fill it up on your own.
Yeah.
Keep going and filling and filling and filling until it's all done.
Until it is complete. And that's exactly what we're doing here, is really supporting all of our incredible listeners and members to stop and go, hey, how do I need to fill me up more? It's going to benefit your relationship, but it's also going to benefit you and your purpose-driven life. So thank you so much, Susan. You have just hit so many great topics. I know our members are going to hit rewind, replay, redo, and really stop and look at where they're at, because this is about owning your own power, but also letting somebody in to enjoy all the glory that, you know, you've done so much of personal work. Time to have somebody wonderful to share it with, but keep going on your personal work. So you have really inspired a lot of thoughts today in our Love Academy. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. This has been a real treat being with you for the year. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I look forward to when we connect again.